Our workshop facilitator is Dr. Cynthia Wilcox, and she has her Ph.D. in clinical psychology, and she's licensed in Colorado. And she has been an individual and group psychotherapist for over 25 years. And she's part of the Meditation Teacher Training Institute with one of my favorite meditation teachers, Tara Brach, and Hugh Byron and Pat Coffey and Jonathan Faust. Cynthia has also been trained in alchemist, alignment body work for trauma, and embodiment spirit, as well as many others. So I'm very pleased to have Cynthia with us tonight, guiding us in this experiential workshop in whatever part of this journey you're on. I'm so excited that you are here in community. Cynthia, off to you.
Hi, everyone. I am so glad to be here with you. And I have to say, my dog just decided this was the perfect moment to have a drink. Okay, she's done. That was very good. So this is, my vision for tonight is that this is an interactive and experiential workshop. And I'm wondering how many people would be willing to turn on your cameras. There will be times where I'm just talking, but there will also be times when I'm asking for people to participate by putting something in the chat or by actually just speaking with the group. And also we're going to do a couple breakout rooms where we go into small groups. And if you don't want to do that, it's okay. It's okay. You can stay with me, or actually, I think what will happen is you'll get put into a breakout room and you can just leave. So you can participate at the level that is comfortable for you. I will just share that my experience in leading groups is very much interactive, and it's a little daunting for me to speak to a page full of names. So I personally would be really grateful to be able to see your lovely faces. I appreciate you having the courage to come to a gathering with what might feel like a rather ominous title. But I promise you it's going to be something that you have choice about, and something we're going to go slowly with. I don't want to do anything that's overwhelming for anyone. So first of all, I'd love to get a sense of who is gathered here. To start off, would you just go to the chat and put your geographic location in the chat so we can see, you know, sort of the range of where we all are. Alicia said I'm licensed in Colorado, which is true, but I actually live in Maryland. From London. Alabama, Canada, California, Edmonton, a lot of Canada, New Jersey, Florida, Chicago, LA. Yeah, Massachusetts. It's nice to see the diversity. And can I ask, do some of you know each other already? Have you met during other events? How many people do you know who are here? Like 5? Who else? It's about 4. That's lovely. I mean, one of the things I'm hoping to do tonight is to create a sense of community here, because I think that that is one of the most supportive things that this organization can be, is a community for everyone. Okay. So before we dive in, I just want to say a few words about creating a feeling of being safe here in this gathering. We'll be talking together in various ways, as I mentioned, in the whole group and sometimes in small groups. And there are a few general guidelines that will hold for all the interactions. First of all, this is confidential among the people who are here. Just out of respect for everyone, it wouldn't be kind to go and tell somebody else who didn't attend what someone said. And just to be clear about the recordings, Alicia said it will be anonymous. It's actually just Alicia and I that will be on the recording. Everything that anyone else says will be edited out. What I'm hoping to do is if we have like questions and answers, I'm planning to repeat your question and then answer it. So that way your voice won't need to be on it. There's ways we can work with that though, if I forget, but I'm gonna try to remember. It's completely up to you if you want to speak. I won't put anyone on the spot. So if the right thing for you tonight is just to listen, allow yourself that. That's okay. And that said, you might be thinking that now, but see how you feel later. When someone speaks, we will listen deeply and we'll place all our attention on the speaker, as opposed to thinking of what's the next thing we want to say. Just simply taking in the speaker on all levels. And this is what we call mindful listening. It's just a really lovely practice that allows us to honor each other. After someone speaks, I'll thank them, and I might offer some teaching or a way of seeing the situation that they're speaking about. And when I do that, that teaching is for everyone. It's simply that I'm sparked by what one person has shared, but I'm assuming that what one person is experiencing is also relevant for a lot of other people. So yeah, I don't want you to feel like I'm, sort of doing an intervention with one person who raised something up. I really love to respond to questions and to circumstances that you might present. And so it's so helpful to me to hear from people and then to use that as a springboard for things that might be relevant to talk about. If you have something that you want to share, please share it from your own perspective, your own experience, rather than as advice to someone. We really avoid advice giving in a context like this. And perhaps some of you have heard of the rule of no crosstalk. It's in 12-step groups, it's a common thing, and a lot of similar groups to this. And that just simply means that we aren't responding to what others say. And that creates safety, but it can also feel a little bit cold or disconnected. So we'll have one exception to the no crosstalk rule. If you want to say after someone speaks that you really understand or resonate with what they've said, or you've had a similar experience, just as a simple supportive message like that, I think that's really appropriate and can make people feel much more comfortable with their speaking. All right, so I think that's everything. Does anyone have any questions, or is there anything else anyone would need in order to feel safe participating here? And if do you all know how to raise your hand electronically? Because that brings you to the top of the screen. If you go to reactions and press raise hand, do you see how to do that? So if anyone wants to ask a question, thumbs up. It's a helpful way to communicate on this platform. So our intention this evening is to learn some skills for touching into difficult truths and being with feelings that arise. And these are this time in our world, it certainly is relevant in many ways. I mean, there's just one thing after another, isn't there, where we have to be with difficult truths and feelings that arise. And I personally have been very aware of that this week with the violence in the world. And I imagine that's true for many of us here. And so I'm hoping that some of the skills that we're going to work with tonight are relevant. So before we go into being with truth and feelings, we need some resources to protect us and keep us safe. Just as when you go out on a boat, you want to make sure you have water to drink and life vests, and there's an anchor and a radio to call for help, and you wouldn't want to go too far out into the open water without those kinds of resources. And so likewise, we don't want to venture into the ocean of challenging truths and feelings without resources on board. So we're going to start with establishing an anchor. And this is something that's right here within our body for each one of us. When we're talking about emotions, we know there's the possibility of drifting way out to sea and getting lost in big waves of emotions. And so we're also going to learn how to go just a little way out and come back to shore, come back home whenever we need to. Emotion is best experienced in small pieces, and it doesn't serve us to overwhelm our nervous system. So that's something that we're really prioritizing tonight. So here's the first resource. Sometimes we call this grounding. I like to call it finding steadiness and stability right here in our body. So I'm just going to ask you to bring your attention to the inside and just sense what it feels like in your body right now. Just notice if there's any tension, like how fast is your heart beating, any activation. Just notice that right now. And then you can close your eyes if you want to. For this exercise, if you want to turn off your camera, you can feel free to do that if it helps you feel more comfortable. This is just like a 5-minute kind of thing. Or you can just look down. It's probably best not to be looking at the screen during this. And so let your breath come in and come all the way down through your torso to your pelvic floor, which is right at the bottom of your torso. And as you breathe down into your lower belly, you might notice that your breath brings you more in contact with the seat beneath you. See if you can feel that. And so your pelvic floor right at the bottom of your torso is a foundation, and you can rest on that foundation. See if you can let the energy in your head and shoulders kind of filter downward like you're a snow globe. And everything can come to rest on your foundation or in the space around you. You might take a couple of deep breaths with a long, slow exhale. A long, slow exhale helps us to shift into parasympathetic state, which is a calm, rest and relax state of the nervous system. So just a deep breath and then breathing out through your mouth like you're blowing through a straw. If your feet are on the floor, you can also feel that your feet are a foundation, that there's no separation between your feet and the floor. And if you focus your attention very specifically on the sensations, on the breath, on the feeling of your seat on the chair, your feet on the floor, just really focus your attention there. Feeling that foundation and See if you can feel the quality of steadiness and stability right here in your body. And just notice if anything has shifted for you just in these couple minutes. Now, different things work for different people, so I'm just going to show you a couple other ways to feel this steadiness and stability. You might sense into the bones in your body. Just feel like your whole skeleton. And your bones are relatively solid compared to other parts of your body. But they're also living parts of you. They contain water. They have active processes happening in the bone marrow. But the bones resonate with the frequency of the earth. And just see if by feeling into the bones in your body, and maybe most especially the bones, the large bone of your pelvis and your upper legs, those are the biggest bones in the body. And just feel how strong they are, if that feels true to you. And see if that connects you with a feeling of steadiness and stability. And here's one last possibility I'll tell you right now is you can imagine that you're leaning against your favorite tree. And this can be a great thing to do, actually, and then it's easier to imagine it. But just for now, imagine that you're leaning against a huge tree and you can feel the solidity and the steadiness of the tree, and you share the tree's root system. So the tree is extending roots deep and wide into the earth, and you're sharing in that rootedness. And you can even extend roots from your own hips and legs and feet and have your own root system right in there with the tree's root system. See how that feels. Okay, so come on back now when you're ready. And I just want to ask you again in chat to tell me a couple things. If you can turn on your camera if you are comfortable. Which one of those was most helpful for you? The tree. I really like that one too. Is would you say that there was some shift in the state of your body as you did any of those exercises? Did you feel some calming or some steadiness in the body as a result? You can just say yes or no if you want. Yes, became very relaxed. Rooting to my feet and seat. Yeah. Thanks. I appreciate the responses. Became very solid. Yeah. That's often something that people feel, or very heavy, a feeling of heaviness. Okay. All right. Well, so I'm hoping that that's a good starting point for having a resource for steadiness, because emotion can kind of tip us over. And then if we start to feel tipped over, we can come back to that particular skill. it's really useful to practice it in daily life, like practice it a lot. If you find something that works for you, and then it becomes a very reliable way of returning to a sense of steadiness. So the other thing I want to teach before we go on is self-kindness. And this is a really big topic, and we'll come back to it several times. But for right now, I'll just say that we often aren't very kind to ourselves in this culture. We often treat our good friends much better than we treat ourselves. Would you agree with that? Do you think that we're kind of conditioned to be self-critical and hold a really high bar for ourselves? We have a lot of conditioning to blame and criticize and even feel ashamed, even when things are in no way our fault, even when we're doing the best we can with the resources we have in the moment. So we can talk more about that later, but right now let's just try a few ways of touching into self-kindness. And you can do this anytime you feel a need for comfort. You can simply say to yourself, it's okay. You're okay. And just silently do that right now and see how it feels. It can be really helpful to place a hand on your heart or on your belly as you say it. You can put your hand where you feel the need for comfort, like sometimes the throat, or, sometimes we feel things in our head. And we can also just wrap our arms around ourselves, hugging ourselves. And there are physiological reasons why this works, why this brings us comfort. Our arms are an extension of our heart space, our heart energy. And so when we use our hands, our arms and our hands to bring comfort, we're kind of bringing our heart energy to the place that needs comfort. If it's hard to feel tenderness in your body for yourself, you might start with somebody that it's easy to feel kindness for, like a child or a pet. It can be anyone. And just bring them to mind and say to yourself, say silently, I wish you happiness and peace. And let your heart energy kind of wake up with that caring for somebody who really matters to you. And then offer that feeling to yourself. And you might offer yourself a phrase or a wish like that, like, may I be at peace. May I be comforted. And just pause with that for a minute. So we can notice that both of these practices, the stability and the self-kindness, they focus on sensation. And sensation brings us into the present moment. Sensation is right here, right now. And we're not thinking about the future. We're not reflecting or worrying about the past. So there's less to deal with. Just right now, this moment, we can recognize that it's okay. And so maybe you can just kind of check that out with yourself right now. Like, if I'm just sitting here right now in this workshop and feeling my seat on the chair, feeling the air on my skin, and being kind to myself, just this moment, is it okay? Am I okay? And just let yourself rest there a moment. Okay, with those resources on board, then we're going to go forward with touching into some thoughts and feelings. So here's a story for you. In a distant land, word spread far and wide of a holy man with a magic so powerful that it could relieve the most severe suffering. But to reach his wilderness refuge and receive his healing, a seeker had to trek through a dense forest and over huge mountain passes. Those who persevered arrived at the holy man's hut, hot, exhausted, and dirty. After guiding them to a refreshing stream and then offering tea, he'd sit with them in silence, gazing out at the sky. When he finally spoke, he would swear them to secrecy about what was about to happen. And once they took the vow, the holy man asked a single question: what are you unwilling to feel? If you are feeling trapped in emotional pain, this question might seem confusing or even offensive. But if you can find some curiosity about your pain, one thing you might discover is a layer of resistance surrounding the pain. For instance, a fear that might actually feel like, if I let myself feel this, I will be overcome with waves that are too big to bear. You might even sense it will swallow you whole. And so therefore we feel as though we need to keep it at bay. We need to not go into those feelings. When we resist feeling what's within us, it actually keeps suffering locked in place. So to varying degrees, our primitive survival brain prompts us to cut off the raw emotional energy in our body, like especially fear. And we bury or numb our feelings, and we preoccupy ourselves with thoughts like maybe distractions, maybe making plans to try to control that which we fear. We go into thinking mind and planning and just try not to feel what's in here. But when we do this, when we pull away from fear and other painful emotions, we also pull away from our full presence and our vitality. We pull away from our intelligence, our creativity, and our capacity for love. Sometimes our unwillingness to experience our feelings shows up as depression, or it could take the form of chronic anxiety. We might find our muscles and our posture tightening. It can also appear as loneliness, restlessness, boredom, or a sense of operating on autopilot, just kind of going through the motions of life. And it can manifest as addictive behavior as well. Whatever the expression, resisting fear, resisting difficult emotions puts us into a trance where we're not living fully. So there's an image of a circle of awareness, and you can picture a circle with a line going across the center of it. And everything above the line is in conscious awareness, and everything below the line is not. And what is below the line of consciousness, we don't even realize that we're thinking or feeling. That's our unconscious. When we resist fear, we're living partially below the line. We're pushing the fear down into the place where we're not being conscious of it. And that unprocessed fear that's operating outside of awareness, it can really shape our beliefs, our decisions, and our actions without realizing it, without us realizing it. The fear we are unwilling to fear controls and binds our life. So this is the question that we will approach with our resources on board. What are you unwilling to feel? So I'm going to ask you to take a moment to find steadiness and stability in your body, to offer some kindness to yourself. And when you're ready, if you feel ready, ask yourself this question and just spend a couple minutes writing down a few responses to that. If this starts to feel too overwhelming, then shift your attention back into your body, back to steadiness and kindness. The question is, what are you unwilling to feel? What are you trying to protect yourself from feeling would be another way to say it. You decide how far you want to go into these feelings. You can choose not to go into the big waves right now. And if you've done as much as you want to do right now, then just do some breathing, feel your foundation, be a tree. And so you might be feeling some feelings right now, but are they manageable? Can you be with them? So we're going to invite you into small groups in just a minute with 3 or 4 people in each group. And I'll invite you to share what you would like to share from your writing. Think about it and don't share more than you feel comfortable sharing. So here are the instructions, and these will be in the chat as well once you're in your group. And I think I'm also going to be speaking to you in your group. Once you are in your group, pause for 20 seconds of quiet where everyone finds stability and kindness for yourself and for each other as well. The first person to speak will be the one with the shortest hair. Or you can use a different method if you want. Introduce yourself. So the first person will introduce yourself by your first name. And if you like, say something about what brings you here this evening. And then share what you would like to about what you just wrote, what you're unwilling or trying to protect yourself from feeling. And once the first person is finished talking, pause for a moment of quiet where everybody finds stability and kindness again. And then person 2 will go. Each person will have 2 minutes to speak. But if you speak for a shorter time, that's okay. And if there's silence where everybody's just breathing together, just know that everyone's having the same experience. There's no need to fill the silence. Once everyone has had a turn, thank each other, and you can exit the breakout room. And you can exit the breakout room at any time if you feel like it's too much or if you're having some big waves. And you'll come back to right here with me. All right. So I think we're ready for the breakout rooms now. So what you all are speaking to is that when we come together with people who share our experience, it softens something in us, and there's a feeling of validation, of support. It makes space for us to help clarify our own feelings and examine our own thoughts. And so this experience of coming together with a sense of common ground, this also is a resource. So we have steadiness and stability, self-kindness, coming to the present moment, being just in the present moment. And we have this common ground social gathering is another resource, connecting with each other. Connection, we'll call it connection. Right. Thank you all so much for really participating in that and sharing your experience. So now I want to come back to the topic of self-kindness in some more detail. Often in our culture, this practice feels strange at first because we are a culture all about self-improvement. And one of our favorite ways to motivate ourselves toward self-improvement is self-criticism. We're pretty hard on ourselves. And social media creates an atmosphere of high expectations for an ideal life, having fun all the time, looking gorgeous all the time, having successes and victories all the time. I mean, that's what life looks like on social media, right? And logically, we know that's not real, but on some level, we often believe that our lives must be less than others, that our own selves must be less than. And that is a formula for suffering. And it takes clear intention to rewire this kind of attitude of being hard on ourselves. And so to begin, the first step is just to notice the ways that you turn against yourself. And we can also notice, like, what are the obstacles to practicing self-kindness? If it was your first time doing something like that, like hand on heart, kind words to yourself, what do the voices in your head say about it? And what are you believing that maybe makes it feel uncomfortable? Like common responses, common experiences in this area might begin with, well, this is really stupid. It just feels kind of weird and dumb to be doing these things. And so the question is, what is the underlying belief that makes it feel weird and kind of stupid to offer ourselves kindness? And just to say, the reason this matters is that there is a huge amount of research now on how self-kindness and self-compassion is extremely helpful for personal growth, for having more ease and peace, letting go of anxiety. I mean, it has so many positive outcomes. And like I say, there's really good research about that. And so I wanted to just spend a little bit of time exploring this. Some of the common beliefs that make it difficult to practice self-kindness are conditioning for self-sacrifice. Like, I'm just supposed to worry about how other people are doing and make sure everybody else is okay. And that matters more than how I'm feeling or what I need. That's a belief set that especially a lot of women are conditioned with. It could be that there's some sense, maybe even below the line of consciousness that we were talking about, that I don't really deserve this. I don't deserve to be so kind to myself. And maybe there's some shame in the background. Some people feel like it's soft or weak to do a practice like that. And a really common one is, if I'm kind to myself, I won't improve, I'll get complacent. If I really feel like I'm fine, I can love myself as I am, how am I ever going to do better? But there's an interesting truth about that. And it's something that Carl Rogers, he's a famous psychotherapist, he said, the curious paradox is that when I accepted myself as I am, then I was able to change. So what we're doing today isn't so much about change. We just want to get to the self-kindness part. But that's a truth that I have witnessed over and over and over again. When we're turned against ourselves, criticizing ourselves, it kind of entrenches us right where we are. And it makes it really hard to grow and change. When it comes to sickness, there's something particularly unkind that we tend to do. And again, often below the line of consciousness, we aren't even aware we're doing it. But there's some conditioning to believe that we must have done something to deserve this. It can feel embarrassing or shameful to admit having a sickness. And that might not be true for everyone here. You might have really done some work around that and be at a very different point, but I just wanted to name it because it's really part of our culture. Even if I don't believe that my sickness is my fault or that it happened to me because of karma, I might wonder, does somebody else believe that? So I actually have cancer. And I do find that thought coming to mind sometimes, like somebody I haven't seen for a long time. And if I'm going to tell them I have cancer, I'm not very secretive about it at all. But it does occur to me that with certain people, if I tell them, are they going to have some judgment about me? Like, oh, what did you do to deserve that? So I'm just curious how much that resonates for you, and where do you think that comes from? Like for each of us, the conditioning to think that way might be coming from a different place. Um, some of us are raised in churches that might promote that self-sacrifice point of view, could come from family of origin, and just also from this Instagram culture, where it looks like everybody's happy and healthy and bursting with love all the time. And really, the sickness itself is enough of a hardship. We create this layer that's an additional layer to just the suffering of the sickness itself. And when if we can see that we are doing that to ourselves, then it might help us to realize how much we are in need of the kindness. Yeah, look at how hard I am on myself in this subtle way that I maybe hardly even notice. So much of our suffering is created in our minds by believing that we should be different than we are, that life should be different than it is, that others should be different than they are. And just think for a moment, what if you weren't believing that? Can you imagine just for a minute what it would be like to let go of all judgment? I'm going to read you a poem called Peace is This Moment Without Judgment. This is by Dorothy Hunt. Do you think peace requires an end to war, or tigers eating only vegetables? Does peace require an absence from your boss, your spouse, yourself? Do you think peace will come some other place than here, some other time than now, in some other heart than yours? Peace is this moment without judgment. That is all. This moment in the heart space where everything that is welcome. Peace is this moment without thinking that it should be some other way, that you should feel some other thing, that your life should unfold according to your plans. Peace is this moment without judgment. This moment in the heart space where everything that is welcome. So I thought we would go back into breakout rooms and talk about this topic of why and how we turn against ourselves. What are the barriers to self-kindness that we experience? What are we believing? I mean, there's actually a number of questions in here, and you can pick the one that you're kind of finding the most relevant to you. Is there something you're believing about being sick? Like maybe you've touched into something that's just at the border of the line of consciousness. Is there something that you're believing, some way that you're believing you don't deserve self-kindness, or you need to be hard on yourself? And where did that come from? So you might just take a minute to make a couple notes. here's a prompt that might feel relevant. If only I was different in this particular way, then I would be okay. I just wanted to give you a little bit more instruction before you went away. So we'll follow the same format as last time, with one person starting and talking. And you can choose which of those questions you want to talk about, or you can talk about both or all three of them. And I will actually go ahead and write those questions in the chat that the regular chat that you can see while you're in the breakout room. And then I'll also just broadcast the message when 2 minutes are up so that you can know when to move on to the next person. Are there any questions? Okay, so now we can go ahead and activate the breakout rooms. So yeah, if you have already done this kind of work before, this might feel a bit basic. It was kind of not knowing where anybody is in terms of these types of practices. I sort of assumed that they might be new. But we can, in the future sessions, kind of go deeper and further. So I'm really hoping that people will come back, and maybe some people will watch the video and come who weren't here tonight, because each session will build on the last. All right. I just want to close by reading one stanza of that poem again, and then Alicia's going to close us out here. Peace is this moment without judgment, that is all. This moment in the heart space where everything that is welcome. Peace is this moment without thinking that it should be some other way, that you should feel some other thing, that your life should unfold according to your plans. Well, that's a high bar, but that's our aspiration, is that kind of peace. Alicia?
Thank you, Cynthia. I'm so grateful for this time we have had together.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone who was able to join on in person tonight, and also for those who will be watching the recording later. The energy around this, it can be felt in various ways, and it all builds on our community. And I'm so thankful for our community and my group for sharing and engaging. It has filled me up for this evening. So thank you for that. And Cynthia, thank you for creating that experience for us. So we have 2 more of these workshops, and each one you need to sign up separately. Yeah, so thanks everybody.
Thank you all.
Yeah, I'll see you next week.